Welcome, everyone, to our podcast. Today, we're sitting with partners in school nutrition, diving into actionable inspiration to provide you not only ideas, but strategies for success. I'm your host, Maureen, and I'm thrilled to explore this topic with you and with some of our school nutrition friends. I am super pumped. I call him the OG of food systems, the local food systems wizard. I mean, I think he might have called himself that, but I like to call him the OG. First of all, way back when I did a very baby podcast, he did a really cool rap. So I don't know if I'm going to get him to do any beatboxing today, but I am so excited to be with Dave Sokoll. He is the executive director of the Forest City Food Collective, formerly known as the artist known as, no, I'm kidding, formerly known as the Oberlin Food Hub. And so Dave joined that effort. But way back when, I think my best fun fact about Dave is we met when he was chefing it up with us for Lorain County Head Start. And so this gentle teddy bear giant was with us with these itty bitty babies doing some really transformational nutrition changes for Lorain County Head Start, talking about good, cheap eats and bringing in authors and books and nutrition tri-days. I think one of my early inspirations into the foodie scene was Mr. Dave Sokoll, and I am so excited to have you with me today.
Thank you.
How's that?
Fantastic.
So talk
sweet.
a little bit. I mean, I know a lot of people connect you with the Food Hub. And even before that, you had ties with the schools as we are all struggling to try to get local procurement going. So just give us a quick intro. Like, where are you at now in the world? Where in the world is Dave in this process?
Well, still working with little ones, although now it's primarily my own, feeding my 1-year-old at home, which is delightful to have such a deep background in feeding little ones to get to put to work so intimately and personally in my own home. And I think I learned a lot at Head Start, in particular in partnership with you and with Marge, our in-house dietitian through Pasonic, just about what it takes to really execute on a vision and to make change, to make transformative change. So in lots of ways, it was many small things, but the cumulative effect on the Head Start community and on myself and on my staff was transformation. I went in with a real excitement to bring local food into the kitchen there, and we did do some of that. And also what we saw was there was some foundational elements of running that business, so to speak, that kitchen that needed to be addressed. Staff pay, staff compensation, the labor structure, how we assigned work and how we managed people. We didn't have enough equipment to do all the things we needed to do in the kitchen. So there was a lot of work that had to be put in just to help the program go. And what that really showed me is I can never give up on the vision. I can never give up on the inspiration and the aspiration to move towards something better. And I have to have my feet on the ground. I have to be anchored in reality and know, like, we can only reach as high as we've built the platforms to support ourselves. And so what is that next platform to allow us to grow? And so you asked where we are now. A major pivot for us in the last few years is that in addition to the work we've done historically in farm to school, we're doing farm to food bank work now. So since the end of 2022, been working through the state and with federal dollars, now working on finding and organizing, and have had some beautiful success organizing local philanthropy to fund a portion of the food that we work with organic growers to bring into food banks. And I bring that up for a variety of reasons, but one of them is that piece that none of that is possible without the groundwork that was laid on the farmer end. Most importantly, the 20 years that these folks have put into building their operations, building their relationships, building networks that aren't just transactional. Yes, they buy and sell things from each other. They work together on contracts, but there's also this reciprocity that says, if we're going to do something big, we have to be willing to, most directly, like, do some things without pay, do some things that are a little extra effort and energy to build something bigger that we can then all be part of. And they put in that work to build a system that in the end of 2022, when these programs announced, they had 1 million pounds of local organic food ready to be put into food banks, which was just tremendous. And on the other end, the food banks were ready because there'd been enough programs that didn't quite hit the mark, that attempted create transformational change in the food system and didn't quite get there. And with the local food purchasing cooperative agreement released under the Inflation Reduction Act about 4 years ago, it was the first time federal dollars were directly targeted at supporting local food systems investment and local food systems development, where a program that was allowing food banks to purchase also helped farmers invest resources in their businesses. And I could talk all day about this, so I'll just say,
I love it.
That's where we have really landed nowadays as the Forest City Food Collective, is it's our job to organize demand, to work with our customers and our communities to help understand what the need really is for local food, and then to tell that story so that buyers, restaurants, grocery stores, hospitals, colleges can help find us and find local food through us, so producers can find new markets, and so that we can tell our story to the general public, so folks can understand we are a 501c3 nonprofit regional food distributor working to build a food system that works for all. So looking for the support that we need to help advance that mission in the world.
Oh gosh. So, my first question as I had it here was, tell us about your passion. You don't have to tell us. It just exudes from you.
I can't help but wear it on my sleeve.
Comes out. That's why you and I are like soul brother and sister in this, because I think many people say, the years, you say 20 years, and I still can't believe it's been 2 decades plus for me in child nutrition. You evolved first from working in multiple different food operations, like food trucks, right? You come from a solid background of what it takes to engineer a meal. And I think that brings such a perspective to kind of think about the systems you're serving now in a very empathetic way. And you have always done that when it comes to training in the school setting, in the early childhood setting at Lorain County, but also as part of Pasonic trainings that we've had you come in and, teach how to cut a watermelon and how fun it can be and easy to do fresh cut produce. I love that you continue this, and I love to let you share that you're still holistically in this. And so I know schools are still leveraging what they need to do with local purchasing. But one of the things that is currently on everybody's mind is when we have affected funding, right? So SNAP funding is right now a big hot button. We have communities that look to us to feed students breakfast and lunch, but we're also sharing information with our families in need, what they can do as family units after the school bell rings at the end of the day for supper and for weekend and for holiday. So talk a little bit about your food bank connection, because I love the fact that, most of the time, schools get a bad rap, like the sloppy Joe joke and the mystery meat. So do food banks. Sometimes folks think that food bank is just going to give me shelf-stable, perishable processed food. Talk about that connection and how empowering it is for food banks to get their hands on some of this local produce to be able to distribute.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I saw it last week. I went to the mobile pantry so I'm on the board of Second Harvest of North Central Ohio. So there's 12 food banks in the state. That one is based in Lorain. Julie Chase Moorfield, an incredible leader of that food bank. And they're all part of the Feeding America Network. So a national network that thinks about what does it take to ensure all Americans have enough to eat. And we are still the richest country in the world.
Right.
We are still the richest country in the world who has millions of people who don't have enough food on their table each week. So to me, that's just a tragic injustice of our country, of our American system. It's something that, in my mind, we can and I'll go ahead and say should all be focused on, all be thinking about. At a time when, I was just listening to a nonprofit coach, mentor kind of guy who was saying there's $1.6 trillion in foundations, donor advised funds, philanthropic organizations right now. All those people are saying they're waiting on the rainy day for when to dip into those dollars to create transformative change in communities. And this is that rainy day. What we saw last week out in Avon in the Lake Erie Crusher Stadium was hundreds and hundreds of cars showing up to get food. And there's lots of, I think, myths about what SNAP recipients look like and what condition their lives are in. What I saw was a lot of women with children and elderly folks. And what we know from the data is all the able-bodied folks who are in that line, the vast majority are working full-time and just not making enough money to make ends meet. So it's true that when folks show up there, they're in a position of needing help, and they're doing the thing that I think is so hard for all of us to do, that they have the courage to do, is to say, I need help.
Yeah.
I need help doing something that I feel like I should be able to do on my own, but I can't. So would you give me a hand? And it's a beautiful thing to be able to say, yes, we can. And so then to take that even a step further, yes, when the job is feeding everyone, that means a lot of different funding streams, a lot of different ways that food gets into food banks. It's very complicated.
Sure.
It's the alphabet soup of organizations and funding streams and programs. And the reality is, yes, a lot of it ends up being shelf-stable products because that's what can be moved, can be stored, can be donated safely. So, I know Second Harvest North Central. I know Julie and her team and her programs work best. I can't speak for all food banks, but what I see there is a real commitment to saying, we know folks want produce. We know folks want protein. What do we need to do to increase the availability of those items? Something that was so compelling about this LFPA, Local Food Purchasing Cooperative Agreement, that we are working to recreate locally with local support, is that it focused on raw agricultural products. So folks were primarily getting produce. And the produce that they're getting was the same produce is coming from small and mid-sized family farms, the same produce going to grocery store distribution centers and high-end restaurants. Everyone should have the dignity of the same high-quality food to eat. And we saw it in line with folks coming through, lighting up when they saw what items were being loaded into their car, that it was real whole food that they could prepare for their families. And to the work you do, it takes education as well, because not everybody knows what to do. Some folks in line would be thrilled to see collards. Some folks would be thrilled to see kale. And not always do we know what to do with the one we're not familiar with. So how to encourage and train and educate and just create excitement around food so that folks take advantage of the wonderful things that are being offered there.
I love that. Our work during the pandemic brought us in contact with Feeding America, and we helped create recipes for some of those boxes. So, I affectionately call, you and I have done some work before with some cool squashes. Sometimes people think that's a decoration for fall, just have it on their counter, and they don't even know how to even cut into or prepare something like an acorn squash or a butternut squash or a spaghetti squash. And so it really is getting that, where the opportunity we partner with is that education piece, and really incentivizing that work and exposure in early childhood and in schools, working with wellness committees within districts, helping even those folks that work in the food service, who might be in that line, because, we all know food service workers aren't in it for the money, right? It's not a glamorously paid position. And so how do I cook with these whole foods that are healthy for my family and are gifted to me? Because obviously it's not nutrition unless it's consumed. And our goal is to feed bellies, not landfills. And so I think the equal passion we have about really educating and making every opportunity an extension of the classroom. We have it, a candid audience in our cafeterias, but when you're in the food bank and when you have opportunities to be a liaison and a support, we've taken that opportunity. I love that you say, it's just communities caring about communities. One of my favorite feel-good projects with Pasonic is to volunteer at the food bank. I mean, we're a team of nutrition professionals that do that on an annual basis because we feel committed to the extension of when families go away for a long winter break, over winter break. There are a lot of families that still need that meal that they don't get when school's out of session. And so I think you bring up so many points that, again, this conduit of passion between us has always been there, and I love it. You brought up one thing that I want to highlight, and I think my fond memories of work with you is that you really brought home for me what it means to be connected, and kind of like the grow it, know it story for kids is the work that these small to medium-sized farmers bring to our region. And in our little niche of the Midwest here, you have done a lot of work, to your point, of building relationships. I feel like when our school folk know that, it makes them more compelled to think about that local purchase. Give me a story, a day in the life of a local farmer, and what that means to connect the dots between our school listeners, who are predominantly our NutriSmart Snacks listeners, to really think about that connection, that humanity.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I love the question. I have this image when you ask that of the farmer, just the conductor, the director, the conductor moving through their operations. So much of what I've seen working closely with a number of farmers around the region is the mix of, and this is to quote one of them directly, the mix of artistry and engineering that it takes to do this work every day. I mean, they are problem solvers extraordinaire, constantly, as Adam Welly at Wayward Seed Farm said to me, Dave, there's a lot of stuff that I and my team know how to do. How much do you think this farm would cost if we didn't know how to do it? We built a road this week. We built a road through our farm so that we could access a new field. To pay someone to come in and do that work is a tremendous expense that would, put them in the red. And there's something really humbling and inspiring about that, knowing how much ingenuity, how much know-how, how much brilliance lives in the minds and hands and bodies of these farmers who are cultivating food for our communities every day. And that it's an art form and it's engineering. It takes incredible tenacity and diligence and discernment to be able to work fields productively and effectively, and then to run a business productively. I mean, as a small business owner, what does it take to actually make this work? So at the end of the day, you can feed your family, you can pay your employees. I mean, Welly at Wayward, his lowest paid worker is making $19 an hour.
Wow.
That's double the state minimum wage.
You have to invest in talent.
Because that's his commitment, is knowing, I need to treat people correctly if they're going to work for me, and I'm going to be engaged in daily relationship with them. So that's what I see. There's again, he talks often about rural sociology. There's a mindset living in the country of interconnectivity, even across difference, political, economic, racial, whatever, across all those differences, there's a connectivity to the fact that you're out there with folks and there's not a lot of other support around. So there's an interconnected, there's a way people rely on each other for what they need that I've seen, sharing of resources, sharing of mentorship, and sharing of good ideas about how to create successful businesses.
We've had a lot of farmers willing to even show up in the cafeteria for special events, and when they're able to. Obviously, we don't pick it in the peak of harvest season because they're busy on their farms, but schools throughout the winter, I think one of the things that I encourage schools to think about is really giving a face and a name with the products that you're trying to serve on your fresh produce bar. We do that work through the Feed Our Future group with the trading cards, because I think it's a cool way for kids to kind of see that connection with the face, and that they're humans, human beings that really care about the cultivation of wholesome foods. And that is part of the why. The why do we go through the efforts we do to bring farm to school and still work out a lot of the kinks. We know it's always a work in progress. It's not a perfect oiled machine, but how do we continue to support one another's efforts? Because I think when you look to the core and the passion of why a farmer does what he does, and why a well-intentioned food service staff do what they do every day to get that fresh produce out to kids, it really is to nurture and to be such a link in public health. I think that's important for school nutrition professionals to believe they're a part of that and tag in the people that are on their team.
I mean, we were talking about SNAP a moment ago. A lot of people don't recognize SNAP was started as an agricultural support program. It was designed in the early 1900s because American farmers had an excess of production and needed stable markets to keep prices up so that they wouldn't go out of business, so that America, we could protect our farmers, so that we could treat the people who cultivate our food, so that we can eat like a part of our family, like a part of our community. And we created a federal program to buy that food up and distribute it to folks who needed it. So it's the same thing. Not a lot has, a lot has changed on the surface, how it's run, how it looks. But at the end of the day, it's the same concept and it's the same mindset that goes into our school food programs. So it's about how do we increase, not decrease, but increase the support for these programs that feed people, that provide reliable markets for farmers, and that show us a way forward. Because if we lose this agricultural knowledge, it's not coming back.
Yeah.
This epistemology, again, lives in the hands and minds of the folks who are doing the work. And if we don't support them and passing that on to the next generation, we won't have the same depth and breadth of capacity to grow our own food to protect ourselves and our families and our communities, which is such a core American value that we can do that ourselves, that we don't need to look overseas or abroad or anywhere else to feed ourselves and our community.
Oh my gosh. You're giving me the chills. So, some of what we say about adding local to schools, for some reason, this vision just came to me, and it's maybe because you're such a good historian, you're such a wealth of knowledge. I think, just like the Hamilton on Broadway talked about like the history of the Constitution and the world, I think you need to come up with some theatrical presentation. That's my challenge. I'm throwing down the gauntlet.
Farm to table rap or something.
I think you need to come up with something then that we can get in front of kids at the elementary and middle school and really just kind of make it come to life so that they can connect the dots.
Definitely just going to parody Hamilton, so I don't need to come up with, the music and all the orchestration. It's just...
Hey, I'm in. I will invest in you to do that because I think partly, we talk about the school nutrition, moving the school nutrition needle, and where we've seen it most successful is when we involve and educate our consumers. And those are the babies. You have a 1-year-old, I have a 12 and a 25-year-old. Time flies. But boy, the last 2 decades plus of being able to be in front of school-age students and really teach them the importance of nutrition by modeling good farm-to-school programming. Even when it's hard, even when things aren't perfect, it still is what lights my fire, right? It lights that spark of like, we can continue to make meaningful modeling and education happen. So when you're ready to wrap, I'm ready to invest in that process. We won't do it today. I won't put you on the spot that bad, but I will end by putting you on the spot only because I asked this question of every one of my attendees here on our podcast. So think back when you were in school. What was your favorite school lunch and why?
Okay. Well, I'm already working on farm to school is really great. Farm to school is really great. There's a million things I never ate. Just you wait. Just you wait. Okay, that's all I got for now.
I am loving this. Yeah. This is going to be a thing. I know.
Well, and it's I always like to answer honestly because I'm like, should I say, they had a kale salad? And no, it was buffalo chicken sandwiches because it was exactly what I wanted and it tasted good. And there weren't a lot of options that appealed to me at the time. So it was consistent and safe and comfortable. And then the meaning that I take from that is that food is about comfort and safety for a lot of us, especially, if I'm going to school, if I'm struggling a little bit, if I have issues with grades or attention or discipline, the food may be the time of the day where I get to pause and feel okay for a minute or feel in my own skin for a minute. Yeah. And so I want something that is familiar and makes me feel good. And that's where I think the challenge for us is in expanding that, in politics, we call it the Overton window, what you're able to talk about and think about in public discourse. This is, what do we eat? What do we talk about eating? When I started a daycare center, I put rice and beans on the menu and they said, that's not kids' food. I said, well, there's literally billions of children around the world who eat rice and beans every day. So what does it take for us to make it kids' food?
Yeah, I love that. Well, I love our time together always. You are such a wealth of knowledge. I thank you so much for being a partner in this passion work. I thank you for being a friend. And I look forward to the next time we are together and we're doing some sort of well-produced, choreographed, the whole 9 yards. We're all in to help you support educating students around this topic.
Well, I'll see you Sunday for my son's birthday, so we can do a little dress rehearsal, first warm up there. And I'm just really grateful for your leadership and the way that you keep pushing forward to put your vision out in the world. Thank you.
I appreciate you, bud.
Yeah.
Thanks.